Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 155 of the Meet the Farmers podcast with me, Ben Eagle. Now, I had to go to a funeral this week, so I missed cereals. But speaking to a few people this week, it seemed like it was a really good event, and certainly by the looks of the farming press as well. I am at least talking to an arable farmer today, Matthew Izod. Apologies, Matt, as well for saying your name wrong at the end of the last episode. I now know how to say it. Matt farms with his family in Oxfordshire, near Chipping Norton in the Cotswolds. The farm is around 500 acres, of which 250 are tenanted and 250 owned. The Izods have recently bought a small flock of Shropshire ewes, bringing livestock back on the farm. They're also part of the Northeast Cotswold Farmer Cluster, and have some interesting wider environmental projects on the farm as well, which we'll talk about, including beginning to trial zero-till practices in some areas to reduce soil erosion. Outside of farming, he's into his gardening, horses, Formula One, and he's getting married on the 25th of June after over 2 years of waiting due to COVID. Congrats on the wedding, Matt. Are you all set?
It's been a long time coming. We've been engaged since 2018 and booked the date practically the day after that we got engaged.
Wow.
January 2018. And I think it got it cancelled 3 months before, but onwards and upwards. And
absolutely.
We're really looking forward to the day. And I hope the rain stops, because I hope I haven't waited 4 years for a rainy day. I think it'd be quite fitting for a farmer to be moaning about the weather.
I mean, it is, yeah. Even on your wedding day, or even for your wedding day. Right. Give us a local's guide to Chipping Norton. I mean, most people, I'm guessing, will probably automatically think of Clarkson now when they think about your part of the world.
So Chipping. Yeah. So normally the questions are, well, they mention Chipping Norton are, how close are you to Clarkson?
Exactly.
About 4 miles.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So he's your neighbour.
Not quite, but we don't know Clarkson that well, but we know Caleb quite well, and Gerald. So
wow.
It's
massive.
It's a great part of the country in the Cotswolds, and we're farming in the Evenow Valley, which it's a beautiful part of the world, and I don't leave it very often, and I don't want to. That's the honest thing.
Because in the sort of info you gave me beforehand, you do go away, but you don't go very far.
No, when we go camping in the caravan, it's 20 minutes most of the time. Yeah, it's great. You can check in at 12 o'clock, you leave at 11:30. By the time you've checked in, you're on holiday. Absolutely perfect. And you can be back in time for work on the Monday, which is even better. So it's and I'm the same, and my families are exactly the same, and there's some just really nice sites in the Cotswolds to go to.
It's not a bad part of the world, is it really?
No, I can't complain.
Not really. Tell us about the farm. How long has your family been farming there?
So Grant brought this farm in the 60s, and they'd farmed in the village previously to that. They were a dairy farm, and they wanted to expand buildings in the 60s, and they're still here, the buildings, so not very modern anymore, but so that's what he brought. And the story goes that his mum gave him some cash to go to the bank, and instead of going to the bank, he came here and put a deposit down on the farm.
Oh, really?
Which didn't go down very well.
But it didn't.
No, but thankfully, so that's how sort of we started here. And Dad, so Grandpa and his brother farmed this farm with a dairy herd, and then Dad and his brother took over sort of in the 80s and 90s, and then going forward we gave up dairy in 2005. So I was only 11 when we gave that up, and all the parlour got converted into holiday lets, and going forward then we were arable up until today really, and we bought some 16 Shropshire ewes.
You've got some stock back now. Small to start with, but wait a few years.
We had some sheep over the winter with a local farmer, and it just spurred the idea of maybe I should have a go at this myself. But he had a few more than me.
Okay. I know where it'll go. Your rotation, what's in the usual rotation, and any cropping challenges in particular that you have where you are?
So like many arable farmers across the country will predominantly focused on wheat. That's our main staple crop we're growing, and so we're now growing wheat and beans. Oilseed rape's just coming back into the rotation. We had a few issues with that before, but we've changed a few practices and we'll go back to rape. Also, we've tried linseed in the past, but that was a challenge. And just, we don't have any weed competition with linseed. So unfortunately, that one has been dropped from the rotation, and we've brought peas into another as a break crop. And the peas that we're growing are an alternative to potatoes for crisps. So it's a real nice thing to be growing something that's actually, as an arable farmer, you're slightly disconnected from the food chain, which it sounds a bit odd. Yeah. We just grow a commodity that goes into the food chain, I always feel. So it's nice to have something that directly goes into a packet. So so that's and we're growing a bit of spring barley and winter barley as well. And we don't have a fixed rotation as such. And the last 2 autumns have been quite wet, so the rotation is completely out the window. And we've just had a big reset this year. And sort of going forward, we're trying to get some of the fields back into a break crop with some beans or peas. Really, that's the answer.
What's your prediction for when combines will start rolling this year?
Well, the barley's it's on the turn now, and we've got these quite hot days. So I think mid-July, really. We haven't grown winter barley before, so we've got no idea. But normally we've got some friends over in Burford, and they're always a week ahead, and they tend to go the second week of July. So any time from then. Nicely timed for when Dad's booked a holiday before harvest. He comes back the second week of July. So
perfect.
Let's hope it's just in time.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
What have you, out of interest, what have you got following on from your barley, from your winter barley?
So that's how we're going to do the challenges with the rape now, because we just can't we want that early establishment, get the crop a bit stronger to be controlled from pests. So that's the idea with the barley, really, to go really early. And we saw that with some cover crop drilling we had last year. The earlier you go in August, the better. So we're planning on straight away, once the barley's off, getting on with sowing the oilseed rape.
Yeah. Now, for non-farming listeners out there, there's always a bit of a running joke in farming. Well, certainly coming from dairy farmers, say that the arable farmers spend most of the winter doing nothing. They work for about 4, maybe 6 weeks of the year at harvest time. Then they put some crops in the ground and then sort of get on with it. Can you just run us through a year for an arable farmer?
They sound about right.
Not helping the stereotype.
So once October comes, we pack our bags and we're off. That's it. Once the harvest starts rolling in July or early August, then that takes us usually through to the middle of September, and then my birthday comes, which is fantastic, right in the end of harvest. So that's a bit of a knees up. Have a good time. And then we start straight away. The crops have come off straight into store. Then we have the seed merchants in to dress the seed, all ready to go again a few weeks later. From October, we start drilling wheat. Barley. At that point, the rape should have already been in. And then we're thinking about beans next. That usually takes up through to November. And then we normally have a chance then. That's our time. Sorry, livestock farmers. We do go on holiday then in November.
Yeah. Until the spring.
Have a bit of a quiet time. It sort of quietens down in November, and usually fix the stuff that we've broken. Dad and I, then that's where we try and get a lot of off-farm work, really. That's what we're trying to do. My uncle runs a building company, so I go and do a bit of labouring for him, which is great in the outdoor weather. But it is just that bit of extra income that helps us. And we have a few winter projects, and that's it. So last year we had a grazier come onto the farm for the first time. So he was grazing cover crops. So I did a lot of preparation for that, sort of trying to find one, learning from what I could do to make his transition onto the farm a bit easier. And then it was trying to help with the sheep this time, which I think as an arable farm, I'm not allowed near fencing unless it's my own. It's the first field that I helped with, it was in a knot and he had to cut the wire. So that half an hour I saved him helping, we then lost straight away by by destroying all the fencing. So I'm not going to help again because I've been banned. I'm going to only touch my own fencing equipment now.
So, I mean, talking about fences, because I mean, you do have some experience with it in that you used to work a lot with horses. Tell us about that, and do you miss that work?
Yeah, so before I joined the farm, so I joined the farm 6 years ago, I did Saturday work while at school on a local event yard. So the horses that do dressage, horse dancing, show jumping, and cross country. So then after I left school at 16 and started full time for the horses. And yeah, it was a really good, enjoyable thing. I was quite shy when I was a teenager. And on our yard with the horses, we were meeting clients all the time. Yeah. We had people that kept their horses with us, and you'd have to go riding with them and sort of really get to know them. Because part of the experience was that you were taking them out and showing them the local area on their beloved horse. And yeah, I do. That's the one side I think I miss.
Okay.
I find actually farming is less of a tie than horses. Yep. It's actually I do more social. I did more unsociable hours during the horses than I do now. But yeah, I miss the people interaction. I think that's what's happened, and I did struggle, especially over COVID, to then get back into talking to people again.
Okay.
When if I was working with the horses, it wouldn't have changed because you've got a lot more people buzzing about. And it's just that's the only thing I miss about it. But I'm still in touch with the guy I work for. He delivers now the horse milk onto the farm, so it's so we still get on really well. So it's nice.
There's still a link there. That's nice. Let's talk about some of your environmental work on the farm. So you've been in a mid-tier countryside stewardship scheme since 2020. Tell us about what that involves and how it's helping the farm and the environment as well.
So the reason we went into stewardship in 2020 is we started a project with Thames Water, and we were approached in 2018 to look at no-till and cover cropping. And we weren't in a stewardship at that point, and we thought, well, the Thames Water came with a 5-year scheme to look at cover cropping next to some land on the river. And as we took that forward on only 4 hectares, 2% of the fight, this is working, the yields were staying the same, the soil was improving. How can we roll this out across the rest of the farm and be able to make it add up? That was the thing. Well, we struggled to look at the numbers, and Thames were paying us a fair chunk of money to make it viable and take the risk out of it. So we looked at the stewardship, and it was a way of allowing us to expand our cover cropping across the farm. So we've gone from 4 hectares now, just over 60 hectares over a year.
Oh, wow.
And that's all through stewardship. So that's a really good one. That's allowed us to then integrate the livestock for the first time this time. Wildflower margins. We've reintroduced the grass buffer margins against our watercourses that we didn't have before. So it's really just started to open my eyes to the farmers. It's a bit embarrassing as a wildlife place as well, and not just the fields. Thinking each field is not just its own sort of parcel. How can I connect the whole farm together? And that's especially where the Northeast Farmer Cluster's coming in and really helping us figure that out. Because I think as a farmer, we sit there with a spreadsheet and we've got 29 fields. So we have 29 different things we're going to do. We don't think about those 29 as a whole, as a one farm. I think, right, I can get from one field to the other with a combine, and that's how I think. And that's how we block the land up. So I think that's sometimes where you just need that little bit of help, just to have a second opinion of, how can we join that habitat with another one, and how can we get there? And that's where I've really found stewardship helpful. We had Natural England come out and speak to us about it, and it was great to have that advice of something that I don't pay any attention to, and it's really good. And we've, through the cluster now as well, we had our first year of birdseed mixes, and we had monitoring done by some students on the farm. So we've never had that habitat on the farm straight away. So put it in there. And the first time they did the monitoring, it was a bit disappointing. And I was like, oh, okay. So, right. So then you're like, okay, what can we do? So then we started supplementary feeding. And as a cluster, we made 26 tons of feed and sent it out to about 40 different farms across the cluster. And we all hand fed every day with a mix that we'd all made from grains across the cluster as well.
Fantastic.
And by the end, when they came back in March, we've got pictures of 200 linnets, and we couldn't count them. So I'm still waiting for all the photos with the amount of birds that were there. And I'm not very good at birds. That's why I'm not very good at the species, but that's what we've had someone come on. I stood with him, and the amount of wildlife that's there now, because of supplementary feeding, but we gave a habitat as well. And it's just until you see the results, you cannot be inspired. I don't know. I think it's like, now what can I do? So I've put a bird mix there, and I've got one the opposite end of the farm. But how do I get them to go in between and have something to eat? And it starts to make you think. And that's all we need to do, is just inspire each other to do it. The idea wants to come from the farmer, the landowner, definitely, because then you're already onto a winning formula. You're going to try your best to make that happen. And that's what I found. Stewardship's a great catalyst for that. And I wish I'd done more now, when before I thought, go small and we'll worry about it later.
Is Clarkson in your cluster?
Obviously not yet. Not yet. He's we approached him a little while ago, but funnily enough, he's really busy.
It's funny that, isn't it? Yeah, wouldn't it? Yeah, it's a surprise.
2 years ago, we started in 2020. We started in 2020, and there were 20 of us in the group. Not many. Today, when I last checked, we had 102 members.
Oh, that's amazing! Wow.
Yeah, but we had we started in the proper COVID year, and so we didn't have a first meeting until last May, and that was our first on-farm meeting, and we had it at our farm. And hosted. I never hosted one, so we were a bit apprehensive of what happened.
Yeah.
And it's the way we had a lot of sign-ups, but trying to get a farmer to come on farm is really difficult.
Okay.
So we had 8 farmers turn up of the 20. Right. So you're going, right. Okay. And the majority of them are, so I'm a director of the cluster, and then I've got 2 other fellow directors. So that was 3 of us, which are that were there. So it's 5 other people.
Well, it's better than nothing.
But then, so 3 months later, we had a big meeting at Farm Ed, which, if you've heard of them, we farm opposite Farm Ed's drive.
With Jonty. Okay.
Yes, that's it. Yeah. So Jonty's on our steering group as well. An event that summer, and we got 60 farmers out. So it doesn't take long. You've just got to engage people, and you can't force it. That's what we've learned. We were trying to knock on doors and almost cold call. It doesn't work. You've got to, a friend will recommend the cluster to another friend, and that farmer will then tell that, and all of a sudden it starts to snowball. And we've just had Matt Elliott, who had on a few episodes ago. Yeah, so we spoke to him, and he's interested, and we're hoping that he will join because he farms near Jonty, and we'll just start to get them. Everybody's starting to think the same, so let's start to collaborate. And it's just, how can we help the transition, especially as we're coming up through BPS, of how can we start to get people funding and collaborating with each other, sharing equipment and all that. It's just started to facilitate that conversation more than anything.
Oh, that's so inspiring. I mean, you mentioned BPS there. Have you got a sort of transition plan for the farm?
If you'd asked me a year ago, I would have told you Elms is the answer. Yeah. That's exactly what I would have said. And I don't know if you hear this often, but I don't know anything about Elms because there's nothing out there, unfortunately, not massively.
Yeah.
So I've seen that as an opportunity, right? I need to work sort of a plan going forward. So diversification is the only one, I think, is moving away from farming. Unfortunately, is the way forward. I think on our farm, we live in such a great area that our holiday let does really well. We're really pleased with it, and it makes consistent profits.
Okay.
And it's then adding to the local economy and everything. So it's brilliant in that respect. and we'd like another one. That's what we'd like to do. But it's just and then we've also talked about that we enjoy campsites. So why don't we have a campsite? It's the cost of the infrastructure. That's the worry.
Yeah.
And so we're getting to a point now. So we had a business restructure when I joined the farm 6 years ago. And so we sort of had a restart. Dad had to heavily invest in the farm. And so it's really taken us for 5 years to really get going again. The farm got considerably smaller, and it's a difficult one. And I don't like the uncertainty with BPS going is really difficult. And to add to the rented land, we want a 1 year FBT, which is great for, it's great for long term. So that was also something that I missed from the stewardship, gave us the option then to go to the landlord and say, can we have a 5 year agreement? So now we've got a longer term plan.
Yep.
So it's just trying to really get nailed down how we're going to do it. And unfortunately, like many across the country, I'm stuck. Where are we going to get a big proportion of our income from? But I was quite negative last year about it, and DEFRA brought out a Your Farm in Future program. And they were doing every week, we were meeting up on Zoom with other farmers, and I talked to farmers from all over the country. And the best place to get advice is other farmers, but not from your local area, because you already see what they're doing.
Okay.
You need different opinions. I was talking to people from Wales, people from Scotland that I would never meet. And they were so inspiring. And that was one of the reasons why we brought the sheep, or 16 of them. It's that just really, and that's why I find my passion with the cluster is talking to other people and other farmers when they're already doing something is how I feel we will change our business. I think it's a difficult one, that BPS. It's all going to be a struggle. I feel the environment is there, and we need to, instead of using the environmental payments and going from being reliant on BPS and then reliant on an ALM scheme, I think is the wrong way to go. You're going from one reliance to another. We can't do that on our farm, definitely. You've got to strip the costs right back, but there's only so much we can do. And we're getting there slowly, but I can't see at what point do you not have a crop if you don't strip the cost right back. So unfortunately, I don't quite have the answer. It's a bit of a worry, really. But
dare I say, I don't think you're not alone at all. Literally everyone is in the same boat. The sort of issue as well, isn't it? Is that there's so many layers of other things on top. I mean, us here on our farm, we're going through, which I haven't actually been that open on the podcast about yet, but we're going through massive succession issues. And have been for the last sort of year or so, just trying to work out what that looks like, and it's all these other things on top. The layering, the full BPS, and then environmental sort of location issues that everyone has as well. So for us, it's very much sea level rise and an eroding seawall as well, which adds extra pressure. Everyone has their own pressures, and it's how you remain resilient through that, and how you plot. If you're a family farm, how you plot those, how you plot that path as a family, or if you're if you're an individual, or it's making sure that the way that you take things forward as a business works for you, but also you don't implode, which is quite a high risk as well.
I think that's the thing. It's that uncertainty that we have as a business anyway, and then the BPS is just one on top. And until we go heavily investing in other things, I really want to see where we are in the next few years. And I paint a very sometimes negative picture of the farm, but it's not. We're in a 10 times better place than we were 5 years ago. When you're going to the bank manager in the autumn is a worry, and thankfully for 4 years we haven't had to do that. So we're getting there, and every time I think it's very difficult in the family situation. It's very difficult to have a sit down and have a realistic chat about it. And through the Your Future Farming program, DEFRA paid for an advisor to come out on farm, and it was one of the most useful things. Did I get loads from how I'm going to replace my BPS check? No, but he facilitated a conversation between me and Dad and mediated how and where we're going, which was the massive, great big thing. And I think and I have a dad that's really open to what I do. I was 6 years ago, I couldn't drive a tractor, a farmer's son, which can't drive a tractor, and I knew nothing about it. The only thing I'd done on the farm since I was born is go and get milk from the milk tank.
Yeah.
I had no interest. And so we've now got animals back. We've tried no-till. We're trying all these different things, which are completely, he's seen them in the 90s and so they didn't work.
Yeah.
And he's really open to change, which, that's why I'm grateful for that. Actually, he's sort of given me a bit of a free rein.
Yeah.
And just, he has his moments where he tells me it's not working, but we all need that sort of, let's try it. If it doesn't work, we can change it. And how can we make it work? It doesn't work, let's put it back in the box.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you've made so much progress in 5 years. Yeah. It's incredible. So, where are we going next? You wanted to talk a little bit about Regen, and sort of the idea that, perhaps, and it does, I certainly get this feeling, and I mean, Groundswell is in a couple of weeks, which I'm really looking forward to going to. This is also a subject that we're talking about on the Kite podcast in a dairy context later today, actually. But do you feel any pressure from the industry that everyone should be doing Regen in inverted commas, and B, I suppose, whether that means doing it in a certain way?
Yeah, I think definitely there's this, where social media is really bad is it really, like 3 years ago, I said to Dad, right, we want to try no-till. We can't move any soil. So I was going, and I was going online and seeing how everyone was doing it, and it was perfect. Yeah. Not realizing that we don't post our bad points online because it's not how it works. And I felt this real pressure that's what I wanted to do. It looked really cool. So we sort of had a real hard learning curve because Dad was going, we can't do that. This soil's not ready. We need to do what I've done before. And I'm going, no, we must do nothing. We must only plant the seed. We were sort of, never fell out about it, but it just created so much sort of tension and we just got it all wrong. And then we went, it didn't work. And I felt this real pressure, and I can't really stand labels of it. Like, are you I'm going to be quite a big statement. Are you a regen farmer if you're still using chemicals? I don't get it. And what are we regenerating? We don't know what was there before. Yeah. But I can see where they're coming from. The soil is in a bad state. We know the bad parts of our farm need to be improved. And they need to be improved for the wider environment, but also to make our bank balance better, it needs to get better. And how do we do that? So I use the information that's out there to try and just help us at least do some of it. And I forget to name the 5 pillars that Groundswell sort of put out there, and they're right. They are right, but I always felt the pressure, you must do all 5. Mm-hmm. But you just take 1 or 2 and you can start to move in that direction. And I think that's where I felt the pressure. And that's no one putting pressure on me. There's just this pressure from the outside world, sort of, you're reading about it. And it's this glory, the golden age of the no-till drill or something like that. And everybody's got fantastic crops and they're doing it at 1 litre an acre or something like that. And so we've tried it, and it has worked. It worked on some of the land, but we've got other bits of how, if we carry on just not moving the soil, we won't have a crop. So we've got to find a way to do it with the less tillage at the less cost. And that's how we're starting to pick from different techniques of how we make it work and how we do the transition. Okay. And I find it really difficult, and it's what we have. If you go on the cluster website and it says we will create a regenerative agricultural landscape. And when we wrote it down, I was like, we're already excluding the people that don't want to do it or don't feel the confidence in it. And it's not want to do it is the wrong word. It's the confidence to try it. We need to be inclusive, encourage people like, okay, so you're ploughing for whatever reason you plough for, your farm better than I do, but how can you reduce your ploughing? How can you reduce deep tillage and get to this point? But everybody's got to be able to just feel confident and take their own risks. We all run a completely different business, and we always forget farming is a business. And I can't really, it really frustrates me. It's got me a bit sort of flustered now of the pressure that we're seeing from an outside industry.
Yep.
Of we're all completely different. It's like you said earlier, Ben, that you're having succession issues. Well, we've got our own issues coming forward with BPS and previous issues with what happened with our business 5 years ago. So it's sort of, we've got a lot going on, and we're just trying to make the best of what we can. And there's some real good advice out there. And if you're willing to listen and take that little bit of information from them, you don't have to go and do the full hog. And when I went to Groundswell last year, and that was it. It changed for me, and I realised that they're not like that. But online, it's a real nasty. It's a quite a bitter place sometimes that you're not doing it. And there's some people that share their farms on YouTube, etc. That they really do get they get some real quite bad hate for showing some different ways of farming. I don't know why, because we're all in the same position and we're trying to make the best of it. So, and I enjoyed Groundswell, and it really opened my eyes that actually the ones we're seeing online sharing the good, there is some bad and ugly bits as well, and they were more open when you see them. And that's so I just don't like this outer pressure. Let's just try and improve the farm, your sustainability and the environment.
There's enough pressure as it is.
If you find that balance across your farm anyway, I think the ecosystem will be a bit better, despite if you plough or not. I don't.
Life away from the farm. How often do you get away, and what do you like doing when you're not on the farm?
So no, I've got sort of a small circle of friends which are not involved in farming at all. And it was great. They didn't ask me any questions about farming until Clarksons farm came out. And now, one of them lives in Chipping Norton, and he's a massive fan of Caleb. I'll send him the link to the podcast, and I'll have to buy him a pint for saying that. But it's but that's what I like, to get away from it completely. I'm quite good at like just switching off from farming completely. That I'll put the tools down and that's it. Unless me and Dad are together, all we do is talk about farming. But when I'm with my friends, I try to not talk about it. So we just like going to the pub. I just used to like, when I had before we had Finley, our little boy, we tended a bit more time to go to the football. We used to go and watch Oxford United. And I don't know anything about football, but it's sort of a good day out, and you get behind the team and you're shouting in the crowd, and it was a real good one. And caravanning is one of the big ones, really. That's where we're always going. And we go, so Cholby is one of our favourite places to go to. I think it's about 8 miles.
Nice.
You pull up, but you go through the barrier and you wouldn't know.
Yeah, you're in a different world.
Yeah, it's a completely different world. Yeah, it's just trees and grass around you. There's a park for Finley. There's a big woods, and we're just completely chilled out. Yeah, I used to do a lot of more horse riding, but I've sort of
I was going to say
recent years.
Okay.
Yeah, I had quite a nasty fall and broke my back, and that was
blimey.
Yeah, so that was
wow.
I was sort of already going, oh, this is too much hassle. Like, I don't have time. And then that happened, and it really sort of went, oh, okay, now I really don't want to have time for it. It's making time, and I think it was becoming a bit of a chore. And we all know if a hobby becomes a chore, it's one way. So I do sort of dip in and out now. I've got a horse that's really good, and you sort of pull him out of the field, and it's like you rode him yesterday.
Yeah.
And it's a great way to check crops on your horse.
Yeah.
So it's really nice. So that's what we like, just exploring the area on the horses when we can. And yeah, it's just, I used to do a little bit of mountain biking, but I got fed up with getting wet and cold. Because sort of in the summer, all I want to do is go to the pub. So I just try and get completely away from the farm if I can. And even if that's just literally going to the pub, sitting with your mate and talking about world issues.
Yeah.
And we all like to sort of try and
put the world to rights.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Over a pint. There's nothing better than that.
Yeah. So other than getting married, of course, very, very soon, what's next? What's next for you?
I just hope I want to become a shepherd.
Yeah.
I just want to become a shepherd. And I'm just looking forward to getting the marriage up. It feels badly out the way. That's what we say. Been looking forward to it now, and life's sort of been on hold. Like, we hadn't planned to have a child before the wedding. That wasn't the plan. And then when it got delayed, we were like, right, well, so just see what happens. And so we had a little boy just before January of COVID. And everybody got to see him the week before lockdown. It was fantastic. The whole family managed to see him. And so he keeps me busy. And it's just, I make plans as we go, really, and see where we go. I'd like lots of opportunities are coming up with the farm, and now already getting some animals. I've taken on about 20 acres of grazing. I don't need that much for the sheep yet, but it's that the opportunities come when you've got the right sort of kit. And that's where I put my focus. You will laugh, but 16 is purely a hobby, isn't it? So that's what I spent most of my Jubilee weekend messing about with. I don't know what I was doing really. I was just enjoying just doing something. Like, there's a bit of a reward there, and it's the first time I'm a bit squeamish, so I stayed bursts and stuff like that isn't really my thing. So I thought, let's go in for lambing. Let's go and do that. Because I bought some. They were in lamb, and it's the best thing I've ever done. Yeah, it was hard. It was tough for the first week. Some of it didn't quite go my way, but once I learned a few lessons, it really, one of the most rewarding things ever, seeing new life. So it was, that's where I put a lot of focus. I'm just really enjoying the sheep, and they're not a massive enterprise at the minute. It's always money one way with animals. It's just buying them and then buying stuff. That's where we're putting our effort, really. It's a bit. And once we've got married, once harvest is over, I think the wife wants to go on holiday, do our November break. Nice.
Sounds good. We always finish the show with the same two questions, which I'm going to ask you now. The first is, if you have a message for the public, what would it be?
So my message for the public would be that, please, when a farmer wants to engage with you, like Open Farm Sunday and that, please make as much effort as you can to engage with the farmer. We're really trying as an industry not to tell you what we want you to do, and come in and learn what we're doing. And on our farm, that's what I really want to do, is encourage people to come on farm and just learn all about what we're doing. I'm not there to tell you what to do. We are just normal people that have a job as a farmer. And we are still a consumer when we go get our food as well. And it's just, please don't feel alienated by the farming press of back British farming. It's, please, we are normal people. Come and see us and engage with us when you can.
Brilliant. And finally, a message for farmers.
It's the same as well. So farmers, please, collaborate with each other, talk to each other, and let's support each other through this next transition. But it's going to be a tough few years in the industry. We're seeing that already with inputs and the pressures from the powers that be. Try and support each other through this transition. And if you haven't spoke to your neighbour for a little while, pick up the phone or go and knock on a door, because that's the biggest thing. That's helped me massively from meeting other farmers. And I'm sure someone will appreciate that, and you'll make their day just spending 5 minutes of yours with them.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, Matt. We'll leave it there. But yeah, thanks for going on. And yeah, honestly, massive congrats on all everything you've done so far and everything you're going to do. I'm sure it's a challenging time, but we'll all get through it. And good luck for the wedding, mostly.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, looking forward to to putting my suit on finally. But I've managed to stay in the same size for the last 4
I was
years.
going to say, I hope it still fits.
Delaying your marriage is the best diet pill. So that's one. Yeah, no, and Chloe brought her wedding dress a month after we got engaged. And
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. No, she's been panicking. And especially after having a baby, your body changes a bit. But I'm glad to say that it's still exactly how it fits out of the box. So yeah, it's it's a big worry for the bride and the dress. But I'm really looking forward to it, and it will be a really welcome day when it finally gets here. It's only 2 weeks tomorrow.
That's it. I'll keep my fingers crossed with the weather for you. Thank you very much for listening. As always, please do subscribe to the show on whatever podcast platform you're using so you don't miss any future episodes. I'm Ben Eagle. This has been Meet the Farmers, and I hope you'll have a great week.
You've got to put yourself in uncomfortable positions, I think, and that's paid off for me time and time again, because I can cope with it, but it is the only way, the best way for me to learn and to find experiences.
I think that's such a good
very
point.
much a good pattern of my career.